All right, and so like I said before, this is going to be very informal. So in the chat, I'm going to send 2 links in there, and those 2 links are documents that that I've created. So the first one is going to be, let me show you. On the SharePoint site that I run for my Travis Tech Tips, there's a section here called Getting Started with SharePoint Sites, and these are some Microsoft instructions and stuff. This talks about the SharePoint News Connector, which we'll talk about in a bit. But there's 4 videos there that I really recommend worth looking at. So to learn SharePoint, document libraries, that's Microsoft terminology for basically folders. But when you understand a little bit more of the power of those folders, which I think once we start talking about, for you guys, how you can go beyond that, you'll understand that there's different ways of having different folders and what you can do with them. And then there's a thing on permissions here in SharePoint, and then Drop Excel for Microsoft Lists is a session that I ran a few months ago. So Microsoft Lists is basically SharePoint lists. So they're lists specific to SharePoint sites. It's kind of combines a spreadsheet and a database. So it's a much simpler spreadsheet. So for tracking assets or something like that, or a project or whatever, you can do that in lists. But a lot of the same, let's say theories, a lot of the same information can be applied to the documents that are stored in SharePoint. So we'll talk about that in a little bit. But these 4 videos are really good power videos. So that's one of the links. The other link here is basically the SharePoint help site from Microsoft. It goes through getting started, your permissions, libraries, data and list pages, sites. So it does do the whole thing. So there's lots of information there that you can go and guide yourself through. But I think the biggest challenge, though, is just to be aware of what is available there. So let me just put Do Not Disturb on here, because apparently I forgot. And let's get started here. So the way we're going to start right from the beginning, which is with a team. So I have a team in Microsoft Teams. So in Teams, and this is kind of redundant, in Teams we have the chat side and we have Teams. In chat, that's where I do one-on-one chat, or I can have a group chat. Anytime that I create a group chat and there's a number of people in it, whenever I upload files, those files actually get stored in my OneDrive, and then I'm just sharing the link with those people. And same thing with someone else. So if we're in a conversation and someone else loads a file up, it's in their OneDrive. I just have added access to it. So that's important to understand, because when those people leave and OneDrive gets kind of cleared out and stuff like that, I'm not sure the process, but I mean, that's where there's a danger of losing access to files and stuff. So the chats are really nice to have, like the group chats. They're very informal. But if you've got a project or a team or something like that, making use of Microsoft Teams allows you to have a place where you can store files. And the files, when they get stored, are not owned by Trevor, they're owned by the team. So in this example here, I'm looking at technology tips. Whoops, my screen keeps disappearing. Come back. So here where I've got the technology tips. So this is my team. So I've got 300 and some odd people that are part of that team. And as I load files up in there, the files don't belong to me, they belong to the teams. Now, at some point in time, I'll leave the university, we'll rename this to, Technology Tech Tips or whoever takes over it. So those files still belong to that team, all those groups. Same thing like a project, it's going to belong to that project. And people come and go in a project all the time. As you add people or remove people, they get access to those files because the files belong to the team. So anytime you look at a conversation here in Teams, you will see posts, files, as for sure, it's the 2 things that show up there. And when we look at files, we're talking about anytime someone has dragged a file into the chat or uploaded the chat, and here's where those files get stored. Okay, so there's one for general. I can go into, let's see if I can put one in Microsoft and Google here. There's conversations and files. Yeah, there's a couple in there. All right, so these are all different channels. And the way I always talk about channels is it's a way to have different topics. So for example, under Travis Tech Tips, every team gets a general channel. And in that general channel, everyone gets access and sees what goes on. They get notifications and anything, anytime something's posted to that. But these other channels, I want to break down the conversation. So if someone has questions about Google, they would go to the Google side and they would put the questions in there and people could respond there. Or if it's just about Microsoft Teams. So it allows us to pinpoint and keep the conversation here specifically on that topic. In your area, you might take a look and see what are the different kind of topics that people are going to be looking at and talking about, and do that as well. The registrar's office, when they first started and we were looking at Teams and that, we kind of looked at, okay, the registrar's office is a huge department that's got a bunch of sub-departments or areas within it. So each one of those little areas could have its own channel. The channel is available to the whole team. So one of the channels, for example, we created was supplies. Okay, so there's managers inside the OUR. They would come to supplies, the supply channel, and say, hey, I need to have more pencils. So that's great. All the people that want to be involved in that can follow that, get notifications, can see what it is. The rest of us, we don't care. That has nothing to do with us. So I don't set up notifications for that. However, at any point in time, I can jump into that channel and say, hey, I also need some pens. So you keep in mind that the whole team can see everything, but I'm not going to go in because it's like a conversation, right? We're in a room. There's a conversation over here about dogs. There's conversations over here about cats. We're all in the same room. I can jump between conversations, but I don't really care about cats. So I hope one of those analogies works for you. The thing to keep in mind here as you're creating these teams is that you've got this section at the top here where you can add more and more different tabs. So I'm just going to go back to my general tab, and I can go up here and I can add an item here. And basically there's a number of different items that I can add, so little apps and stuff. So I can say, you know what, I want to add a task from Planners. I want to add a book from OneNote. So these are all existing files somewhere. It just basically, instead of my having to go over here, find the link or search for it or stuff like that, I'm just creating a shortcut at the top of the thing here. So some people really push that and do a lot of work in here. Some people not so much. It just depends on what you want to do. The big thing I want to show you guys though is that all of these teams, when they're created, have a website associated with it. And the website is where you can do more and more than just your basic stuff. But it is a website for that team. So by default, the only people that have access to it are the members of that team. The easiest way to get to it is if you go to Files and just come off to down here, you'll see, new, upload, blah, blah, blah. But there's 3 dots here, open in SharePoint. That is going to open up where those files get stored in SharePoint. So I'm going to go back here. This is my Trev Tech Tips website. I'm going to go back here just so you can see this again. Notice there's documents, then general. And this is all the files that get loaded up in the conversation. So when I'm in a post here and I upload a file in the conversation, that's where it gets stored. Notice I've got general, Apple, automation, cascade. So each of these channels has its own place to upload files. Well, when I look at Trev's Tech Tips, you'll see documents and then general. I'm going to go up one level. And all the files, all the channels are represented here. So remember we talked about Apple, automation, cascade, general, Google. I can go to here. There they are, the same thing. So every time I create a channel, it automatically creates a folder, and that's where the files get loaded up. So the files don't actually live with Teams. They're actually living in a SharePoint somewhere, and Teams has just got a connector to that section called Documents. This is called the document library. This is where you can store all the files. I can also add new files in there. So for example, there's conference videos. Conference videos doesn't show up in here anywhere, but because SharePoint is the original source, I can add other folders and stuff in here. So that's important to understand now is I've got a place where all these files get stored. I'm just going to go back up to the top level here at home just so you can see it. So this is the landing page that I send everyone to. I have my shortcuts and stuff. I will to get links that send people to here. And this is just like any other website creation tool. So in this case, I've got news items that go in there. I have a couple of banners. I've got some quick links. So, searching the Help Center, how to search McEwen and Google and Microsoft, Google, and Apple support documents rather than going to each of those three ones. How to join the team, signing into LinkedIn Learning, because this page here is basically all about education. This is learning. There's my calendar of all the upcoming sessions. Look at that, Drop Excel for Microsoft on November 2nd. If you haven't taken it, really recommend it. That's the future of where everything's going to be going. Service outages. Is Google down? Is Microsoft down? Is Blackboard down on the McEwen sites? And then training resources, all the different videos are in there. So you can customize it just like any other website, and this becomes a resource for your users.
Can I ask a question, Trevor?
Of course. No, you just asked the question. Don't ask it again.
Back to when you were in your documents list, if you create a new folder on your SharePoint site, how do you link, how does that sync to the Teams?
Okay, so there's a difference because the document folder just says this is where documents go.
Okay.
If a channel gets created, if you create a new channel, it says you probably want those files for that channel in its own folder. But that documents piece, that's available to everybody. So and I'll show you that in a couple seconds here.
So if you want a channel, you have to make it in Teams, a new channel.
Say again?
If you want to create a new channel, it's easier to do it in Teams.
You have to. It's the only place you can create a channel is in Teams, because all site does is looks at files, right? Files, whether they're news articles or files or whatever. If you're talking conversations, chatting, that's Teams. It's just that if we have a conversation, I want to share a file with you, I got to store it someplace online so we all have access to it, and that's where it works in there. Okay. But let me just show you a couple of things here. So here's my news. So this is my landing page here. Well, in my team here under General, I actually went under here, and under the plus sign, you can add a SharePoint page. So it could be that documents folder. It could be a folder I create inside the documents folder. I can go and also create a website. So this will go to any website at all. And then when you do that, that's how you get this stuff up top here. So for example, as part of my talking stuff here, my Thursday drop-ins, I have an archive. So if you click on that, that would show you, in this case, it's just pulling up a Google Doc, which is just a web page, and there's what we're talking about. There's what everything I've talked about since I started this. Later this week, I'll update and put in what we're going to be talking about on Thursday. All that stuff is there from within Teams. I can also, I also can go in and using the SharePoint add-on, I can point to a specific page. So notice this page. There's my news items. There's my calendar of upcoming training. There's this link to join the drop-ins, my quick links. Everything's the same. This here is this page. It's the same thing without the menu. So my users don't have to go to my website. This is it here. This is where most of them are going to be. And if I wanted to, I could go into the documents and stuff like that, grab that information, that URL, and then just point to that one folder. Okay, so remember I said we did the conference videos. So I'm just going to pull this up real quick. I'm going to go into my documents because that's where I stored it. I created a new folder called conference videos. There it is. There's nothing in there right now. Here, I'll just add something real quickly. So I'll just add a folder here that says test and delete. Now I'm going to take that URL and I'm going to go back into Teams. And just because I don't want to mess my main one there, I'm just going to go into one of my other teams here. So let's go into creating apps. Is there a lot in there? Give me a sec. I want to find one that's kind of empty. This is good enough. So I'm going to go to the plus sign here. I can say, you know what? I want a SharePoint page or a website. Either one will do it because it's the same thing, right? I just do this because it's faster. Because here I have to just go in, type in the website. So it's a test paste the URL. I can choose to post it to the channel because this is associated with a channel, but I'm not. And there it is up in the top there. And there's the folder. So you can go in and out and pick 4 or 5 different folders from different places, whether they're within Google or Microsoft or whatever, and they can show up here as links. Keep in mind, if you are using something like Google or Dropbox or whatever else, the sharing preferences of Microsoft do not translate to the sharing preferences of Google. They're 2 different people. So, I mean, before when I was showing you my Google Docs, it's open to the world. You don't have to be logged in. Whereas if I had a folder somewhere with security on it, I'd have to make sure that all the users that I'm working with are also able to access that folder. And that applies to whether it's Dropbox or anything else, right? If there's other sharing involved that's not Microsoft, then they're not talking to each other. So you just have to keep that in mind. But for this kind of stuff where you're just going to pull in and have a channel pointing to a specific folder or something like that, hey, it doesn't really matter. So you can make this like a little landing page and like a mini portal, easy enough, and customize what you want to show up in here on your team. Questions? Cool. All right, so let's go back here. So I'm going to go back to my, well, actually, so let's go to home here for a second. The default is a little bit different. You can actually go and customize your menu structure here by using the edit button here. And then you can add new links and stuff. And it's easy because all you do is put + sign and then put in the URL of the page you want to show up. So if I have another section in the deep inside the folder structure of the site, I would just put the address in there, the URL, what I want the name to be, and it'll work as an editor. But how do I do all that? Well, the big thing is we look at site contents. And I'm not going to do a deep dive on this because, I mean, there's videos and there's all sorts of stuff available for it. But, oops, let's cancel that, Trevor. But I'm going to go into site contents. So when you look at the site and the site contents, what they're talking about is every folder and every asset for the site. Right now, we've only seen the documents folder. That's just one folder out of a bunch of stuff that's associated with this website. And so by default, when you look at it, you'll see something called site pages. Well, that's actual pages. It's not documents. It's not templates. I've created some folders in here and stuff. You don't have to worry about those. But the site pages are every page that's in there. And they're just created as a document here. So here are all my news articles. Here are all the pages like this getting started with SharePoint. That's all associated in here. So these are all different pages available to that. What's cool about this is that these are just files. Okay, they're no different than a Microsoft Word document, but they are just a file type associated specifically with web pages. What's nice is I could go in and, I mean, we've seen these columns before, modified by, created, et cetera, but I can go in and add other columns over here to help me with my organization of my data in here. So for example, what I've done is as I create stuff, typically, I will go in and I have topic areas. And this is the part of Microsoft Lists that is being incorporated into the site. So by going into here, I'm going to go to my column settings here. Here are all the different tags that I can associate with a story. Because down the road, I might decide, you know what, I want to know all the stuff about Teams. So I'm going to go and I'm going to filter it just by Teams, and it's going to show me just the Teams records. There we are. So that's one of the cool things about using the documents libraries and stuff is that you can now add extra metadata and you can do all sorts of cool stuff. And we'll talk a bit more about that in a second. This doesn't delete or remove anything. It just temporarily hides it for me while I'm using it. While you're using it, you might be on the same page. You're going to see something, totally different depending on what you want to do. So we can still all do our own work, but still be able to see things. So one of the things that I did a while ago is I have conference recordings. So as I go to these online conferences and stuff, where I can, I download the videos that are associated with them. So here's a collection of a bunch of videos that I've done, and these are the different conferences that they belong to. So this is great. I've also created a column here called topics. So whether it's about Teams, Power Automation, whatever, I try and flag those as much as possible. So that again, if someone comes in and goes, I'd be interested in see what's Power Automate for these conferences, they can quickly pull through that stuff. I added the conference name as a column, the presenter name, the topics, and all that stuff. Now, that can only be done by an owner, but it's easy to do because you just go under Add Column here. And first, there's a bunch of default ones here. So it's single line, multiple text, person, you can go through there. I can also go show and hide columns because there are actually a number of columns, but a lot of them I'm not using. So I always say to people, make sure you go through and take a look at what's there already, because you might be able to use something that's there already before you start making new ones and stuff. And then you can go in and start adding different columns. So I mentioned that we've got this. Any user can come in here and can go filter by, let's see, I want all the Power Automation stuff. And there's all the records that they can do. And these are videos, so they just click on it and start watching it. This could be a Word document or a PDF or anything else. I mean, it's storage, right? But the titles here, who's the presenter, what are the topics? Those are extra metadata that normally aren't associated with a file anywhere, but you can add that kind of stuff in. Now, I know people are going to come to here and they're going, Trevor, I'm really interested in this GlobalCon stuff here. Can I see all of that stuff together? Well, you could go into here and you could filter this ascending. So there's a GlobalCon 5. Then I'll scroll down. Well, actually, I have to turn that filter off first. So let's go back here and clear all. So there's all the GlobalCon and the 365, then Atlassian, but see, that's not easy to read. I know everyone's going to want this. So I can create what's called document views. A document view basically is just another way of looking at the same information. So in this case, I'm going to go under this conference list. And here, look at that. All the conferences together are listed, and then there are the sessions that belong to that conference. And I've gone and actually made it so that they're in alphabetical order here. So notice 2020 and then 2021. So it's in alphabetical order here. And then when you open up the item, it's again in alphabetical order. And I can change that if I wanted to. I can change the default to be a Microsoft Teams and stuff like that. But I mean, you can create all sorts of different views. So I'm going to go into here and I create one called a review report. And I don't remember what this was about, but it's a different report. You can see that there. The nice thing about it is, let's say that we create something called status. So you're working on some Word documents. You create a status document. The status is in progress or completed. That's great. I can now create reports here that would say, hey, show me all the documents that are in progress. Show me all the documents that are completed. I'm going to take these completed documents and I'm going to move them to a different folder because they're completed. So it allows you to have a place where everyone can see all the data, the status on it and stuff like that of the file. If you've worked with me in the past, you know I'm a really big proponent when we use Google Sheets or Excel spreadsheets to track stuff and then have a status there so that anyone can come to that file and see what's the status of this line item. In this case, we're doing exactly the same thing, except now instead of it being a line item, it's actually a file. So, and this is all part of when you look at the SharePoint help there. That's going to be big and heavy here on the data and list stuff. So if you want to take a look at that. Here's another nice thing about this stuff. I can also put in requests to have files approved. So I'm just going to go, sure, let's go into here. So let's say I've got a Word document that I've uploaded here. And I want to, before I mark the status here to completed, I need to get approval from my manager. Well, I can go into here, I can highlight this, and if I look under, gotta remember because they changed it, Power Automate, request sign off. Basically, this is like a little script that gets run. And I, as a user, just have to enable it once, but after that, it's good to go. So here's what's going to happen. I am going to have this set up. I've done this before. I just have to make sure all my permissions are correct. So I'll just say, yep, I'm good. So we'll just create this flow. And it says, who do you want to sign this off? Oh, well, you've been bad to me today. Okay, imagine if you will, it actually worked. Let me try this. This is a list that I have here in a different location. Let's do the list here. So this is a list. This is not a file, but the concepts are the same because they all translate over. So we'll wait till it starts up. There we go. Create a flow. Create another flow. Come on. So what's going to happen is when it's done, it's going to say, who do you want to sign off on this? So I put in the people, and I can have more than one. I can say all 3 people need to have their sign off on it, or I just want one person to sign off. So I can indicate that. I can throw a message in there. Hey, I can't move forward until you approve this, and then go ahead and run that. So there we are. Okay, there we go. So I'm just going to put myself in just because it's easier, and I don't have anyone else handy to help me out. So Trevor Beck. And, please approve so we can move forward. And we'll run this flow. Approvals starts off, and it's good. One of the things it will do is it'll create a folder here. Come on, go away. A folder, or not a folder. It creates a column here called a sign-off status. Okay, so that's not the same thing as a status of the file or the project. That means it's been sent out for signing off. What's the status? I'm just going to do a quick refresh so you can see what happens. And the word pending shows up here. All right, we can see here, I've done this before and it was approved, but here it's pending. I am so now I'm the end user. I will get a message in Teams. So in my Teams here, I should get a message that says, hey, Trevor has sent you a request. And from right within Teams, I should be able to go in and approve this. I should also be getting an email, and it's the same thing. I can go through. So here, this was just now. If needed, add your comments. Yes, go ahead. Or let's see, change to blue, then go ahead, and I'll approve that. Off it goes.
I have a quick question.
Yep.
If you say you're sending like a document to get signed or something, like a digital signature, can that person open that file and add a signature if they had to?
Well, they're not adding the signature. By clicking on approval, I'm logged in as me. So we're tracking the fact that it's Trevor logged in. Trevor's the one that clicked the button. No one else could have done it because I don't give out my password to anyone, and nor should anyone else. I can still go into the file and look at it. That's not a problem. But we're not doing the electronic signature like you've traditionally have done. This is the new way of doing stuff.
Oh,
so electronic signatures were for PDFs. We're not dealing with PDFs. We're dealing with an asset, which could be a PDF, Word, video, anything, right?
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So there's an app that you might have to load up on the side here called Approvals, and there's the 3 dots here. If you don't see it, you can add it. But this shows all the approvals that I have sent and received. So here we can see, because I also sent it, but it's approved and it was sent by Trevor, but I approved it. This looks less confusing when I actually use someone else. So let me go. There's one I did here the other day with David. Where is he? So sent by, and then there we are. So here's an example here. Here I've got a couple people. I sent this item here. Please approve test 1. I sent it to Mario. Mario approved it because it's approved. It was sent to Mario. He approved it. So that's where you would track you can track all that stuff.
Now, does your department use it for real stuff other than training?
This is SharePoint. This has nothing to do with training. This is SharePoint. So no, yeah, use it for any.
No, your department actually uses that, like, rather than just showing us how to do it. Like, you guys actually use it and everything.
Some do, some don't. HR does, I know, use it. You know what? I'm a one-man guy, quite frankly. So I mean, I approve all my stuff. I'm pretty smart. But I mean, and again, this is new, right?
Yeah.
So there are some areas are jumping into it. Some of it are kind of like, your first instinct which is, well, I need a PDF and I need a stamp on it and blah, blah, blah. No, you don't, because that was the old way of doing things and it worked well with PDFs. But I mean, this way we're logged in. So when you approve it, we know exactly who's approved it. And here I can see it. This has now been approved. I could go in and I could assign this to somebody else. So in this case, this isn't a document. But I could do this with a document. This is just like a little spreadsheet, but I can change this as approved. Okay, I'm going to assign somebody to this, whether it's a person or whatever. And the nice thing about that is when I start assigning stuff to people, it's, where is it here? Approve, sign to. I just start typing someone's name in, Nick. So there's Nick Fisher. I can click on that. These are all people that are in our system. So we know that they're going to get notifications and stuff like that. And that's the beauty of this, is that it's all built into the system. So when we approve stuff, it's approved, it's tracked, we know. You can't, nobody can come and say, oh, I don't know anything about that. Well, no, that's not true. But you can do all of this stuff within the file structure as well when we look at that. So we can add these extra elements in and stuff like that. And if you want, I can take this file here of video conferences or my documents, and I can add them to my team. So when my team comes in here, so for your area, you're in facilities, let's say that you have a bunch of documents and resources and files and stuff for groundskeeping. So you might have a channel here called groundskeeping. And in that, you're going to add the folder for the groundskeeping folder stuff in there. It could be added up there as well. It's still in SharePoint. They all have the same access and stuff like that, and they can have access to it. One of the nice things that are coming down the pipe right away is that you can work with those files directly in Teams. Right now, for some of the stuff, so for example, if I go into here and I wanted to leave a comment on this file, where is it? Alert me, more, compliance. I can't remember where it is. And I can't see it right now, but I can do that right from with Teams. That's something new that's being opened up. Other things to keep in mind is that we have the ability to use what's called Power Automate. Power Automate is basically little scripts that Microsoft provides us or that we create ourselves to do different functionality. So for example, Automate's what they use. Request sign off was one. I could also set up a flow that says, hey, when this gets changed or updated, let me know. So I don't have to sit there and monitor this document the whole time. I can get a notification that says, hey, someone went and updated this document. Actually, I think that's under the alert me. Yeah, alert me when an item changes. So we now can control all that, because I mean, how many times have we taken a document? It's like, I know no one's going to touch it, but when they do touch it, I'd like them to, I'd like to be notified of it. In Word, Excel and stuff like that, you can, what I do is I tell people, make your changes, when you're done, leave a comment there and tag me in it. So at Trevor, I'm done my updates. That way I get a notification. You can't do that in a video. You can't do that easily in a PDF. You can't do that in other files. So in that case, that's where I would use that notification or alert me function for that file to let me know that, hey, I've sent this off, but now I'm waiting for someone to get back to me and make some changes. Questions? Blowing your mind yet?
Just like with facilities, we have this program we use, and it's for document control. And yep. I'm thinking that we could just like scrap that whole program and just use it Teams now. Because basically, like a manager will put in a document and then they assign it to everybody and you have to read it and then you say read kind of thing. So is that we could almost do that here?
Yeah, because that would be part of the approval process, right?
Yeah.
Right. I mean, even though it says I need your approval, you're saying I need you to indicate that you've read it. So I would send the approval request and just say, please indicate that after you have read this, right? Because you want this as a commitment. This is you saying, yes, I have read it. And so when something happens and you go, oh, I didn't know that, then the manager says, well, you approved that you had read this document. So you can easily do something like that. That's definitely a way to do it. What I would suggest, because there's still like other functions and stuff, I mean, we could go into a longer depth conversation about everyone's individual needs, but those 4 videos are a good start, because once you understand the concepts,
Yeah.
that's really important. Because, for example, this document, that's a document library. Okay, so library folder, that's all it is. The difference being is that these columns, conference, topic, and presenter, work great for videos. But when I go into my general tab, come on, oops, I go back into show all documents. When I go back into my my general stuff, these are just files I've uploaded. Conference, presenter, topic, that doesn't even apply to this stuff at all. So one of the things about when you add these columns and stuff, it actually applies at the top level. So it's going to apply for every folder underneath it. So this would be great if I mean, and again, I was just learning too, but if I was to do this again, I would create a new document library called videos, video recordings, and then I'd have this in there, and that would apply to everything that goes in there. That makes sense. Here it doesn't. And sometimes you might want to have 10 columns or 2 columns or 3 columns. So you don't want to have all the columns there and then just kind of remove stuff. So sometimes it makes more sense. Also the sharing, because once I'm in a folder, yes, by default, everyone on the team has access, but I create a new folder. I only want these 5 people to have access to the files, or to have edit access to the files, or what have you, right? So there's a lot more that goes into it, and that's where that video on permissions comes in to try and look at it. So it's important to kind of plan your attack first before you just start building stuff in your site. Okay. Last thing I want to show you then is the thing I like is the news archive. So when I first started this piece in my teams, basically I would go in and I would post something to general, and then I would also post to Microsoft 365. When you create a post, you can actually post it to a number of different channels, even on different teams. So I'm just going to do a quick thing here. So the other day there was a conference coming up, a Microsoft conference that was coming up. So Microsoft conference info. And then when I go to open this, I can post to multiple channels, which basically means, okay, this is going into my general for my Microsoft Teams, but I also want it to show up in my general for Microsoft Tips. So I'm going to post it there. I'm also going to post it in the Cascade section. I'm going to go up to Client Services, my other department, and I'm going to go in and post it to Technology Support. And so when I hit Update and then Post, that same posting goes to all those channels. So I don't have to do it 10 times. So that's important to do that. The problem, though, is sometimes it's not easy to find something. Someone will come and say, you know, Trevor, you talked about X, Y, and Z a number of years ago, so or weeks ago or months ago. So let's look at, oh, here's a good one. So iPhone. So I put something out a while ago about how to put your QR code on your iPhone. So I'm just going to do a find here. I'll type in the word iPhone. If people think about it, they will pull it up here and whiteboard. I have an iPhone portrait, creative iPhone. There it is. That's the one I want. So they could click on that. For some things, it's a lot easier just coming to a web page like this. Because now when I type in iPhone, this is my resource page. And a lot of people like to have a web page to look at. And there we go. There's the create your iPhone. There's a little blurbage on it. There's the image. They can go click on that, and then off it goes. There's more information. That's the full details of the information. The actual post was just a short, simple thing that said, hey, I've got information on how you can throw your vaccine record onto your iPhone. So that's great. So this gives you the opportunity to have an archive that's searchable, but also to put in more information. Because notice here, I've got this document here, I've got this video here, and there's a conversation here. Some comments were left here, and this particular website is open to the public. So anyone at MacEwan, students, staff, doesn't matter. It's not closed off. I've gone in and purposely said, anyone wants to learn something, come to this website. they can't, and students right now can't get into Microsoft Teams, so they can't be part of the chat. So this is really important for me to be able to say, yes, this is only, this is available to them as well. So in the beginning, I was looking at this and I would have to post this, then I would have to copy this link, go into the here, add a new conversation, paste the link in there and send it off. Well, that's double the work and it's not worth my time. However, there is an add-on in Teams that says, hey, if I'm part of this team and someone posts a message from this team, I want it to automatically show up in my channel. And the way to do that, and I'm going to use a different team here for this, is I'm going to go into my playground here, and I'm just going to pick a different channel. Normally, I would pick the general channel, only because in general, the notifications are turned on automatically. So if you take a look at conference videos, channel notifications, you actually have to go and select that, all activity, because by default it's off, because only the people that are interested in that will turn it on. In general, everyone gets notified about that. By default, everyone gets turned on. So as soon as something gets posted to here in my team, they're all going to get a notification. Okay, so but this is going to happen to any channel. I'm going to pick this meetings one here. So I'm going to go into here and let me find something small here real quickly. Now I'll go back to the forums. So I go to here, the three dots here, you'll see something called connectors. So connectors is when stuff is going to feed to that channel automatically. So a couple things that I do is here's my SharePoint news. Okay, so this is the SharePoint news for this particular team. All right, and I could go ahead and hit save that. Give it a second. So anytime I post something to Microsoft Teams Training Ground, it's going to get showing up. It's going to show up in that group. Let me see what we have here. So let's go take a look at this. I'm going to go into the files here we talked about before, and I'm going to go over to here to get to that SharePoint site. And I go to home here. Up top, I'm going to add a news item. So there's my news post. And you can have different layouts and stuff like that. We'll go with blank because it's just quick and dirty. I'll add a quick graphic in here just because it'll show up. It'd be nice for it to show up. And I'm just not spending any time, just throwing stuff up here. My new post. Move this up so we can focus on him. Put in my text. And again, this is a page that could have multiple columns, videos, the whole thing. Whoops, come on. Please ignore. And I'll post the news. Now there's about 40 or 50 people that are using this team. So they're all going to get a little pop-up on the screen. So I mean, in the news section, I don't want to sit there and be just pounding stuff away at them saying, hey, look at all this stuff. So be careful about how often you post the news. But look what's happened. My post, please ignore. Under the activity, it would show up there as well because it's coming from SharePoint News. It's not coming from Trevor posting it. But then when we're done here, which is nice, is they click on that link and guess what? It takes them right back to the website. So again, they have access to information. They have a landing page there, and you can do all sorts of customization. This becomes a nice resource that as you're sending updates to people, they get that email, but any documents you want associated with it, I could have those attached into here as well. So for example, when we look at all the elements that we can add to this page, I'm going to go into here real quick. There's all these different things. So like whether it's a text box, image, I could link to videos, whether it's in stream or whether it's in YouTube, news items. I can break stuff down a bit more into different links, a video gallery, a bunch of pictures. I can point to a specific document library. So remember we were talking about those folders and stuff. Let's just do that real quick here. And I'm going to go into, well, let me do it there. Yeah, so there we go. So I have within my document library, remember we have the documents, then there's form templates. there it is there. Anything that's in there is going to show up right automatically. So there's my update, my news. So when they come to the page, it could link to a specific folder. And so, hey, here's a new update to procedure on how to pick dandelions. I don't know. And then we might have a Word document there, and then we would put that in there, and you could post that right in. So now all the elements of the site can be displayed on a page, and it makes it a lot easier for the end user to then be able to find what they want. Because the whole idea is find what they want. And then if you want, because again, I know some of you mentioned that your users don't use the chat function much in Teams, but they probably would use a website because they're older and they know what a website is and how it works. That's where I go to find my news. So there you can go and make sure that they find the news, but they're still going to get the notifications in the posts. And if you post something if you post something to Teams, by default, if you haven't read it after I think an hour, it will send an email saying, hey, someone has posted stuff to you. So it's definitely a learning curve. It's definitely a paradigm shift for a lot of people because everyone's used to emails and files being sent to them. But now what we want to do is get away from that. We want to use links to documents that are online. So if we need to update that guide or that instruction manual, we just update it. The end user just clicks on a link and bang, they're at that document again. The moment you send a file out as an attachment to 10 different people, you have 10 different copies. And then what happens when you update this? Does it update that? No, it doesn't. So we need to get away from sending out direct files and start using more of the links and stuff. And by storing stuff in Teams here, we'll make it a lot easier. Okay, that's it. That's the showcase. I mean, there's lots more you can do. There's playing around you can do and stuff like that. I mean, that's, if you have ownership in that, it's easy enough to do. Questions?
Yes, I have a question. So for the SharePoint, the documents, it's possible to set the different access level. Because for facilities, some documents maybe they only can be accessed by the managers and some can not open for everyone.
Yeah, you can do that. So keep in mind, so for example, I've gone in but keep in mind the documents is not all documents. It's ideally the documents associated with your team. So you can create a documents number 2 folder and go in and change that because the documents folder is associated with the team. The idea is they're going to work on this. They can edit it. They can make comments on it and stuff like that. That's the purpose of that folder section. But if you have other documents that you want to make available to people, but only maybe editable by 5 people or only available to certain people, you would create another folder, maybe call it resources. And you would set up whatever you want for sharing. In the top right-hand corner, and again, those videos will show you that, but I can go in and set up my site permissions. I can set up my permissions for a specific folder. So I have, for example, under the conference recordings there, I have that set up. I'm the only one that can add stuff. This is my area here. So I've gone in and changed conference recordings so that everyone else who's on the team, and in this case, anyone at McEwen, can view it. They can, leave comments and documents and stuff, but only Trevor can update it. So you can definitely do that. But just to be clear, the documents folder might not be the best place to store stuff. Just because it says the word documents doesn't mean it's the only place to store files. Okay. I personally would create a new document library and put stuff in there, keep them separate. Because in my mind, documents is where you upload files from Teams. Think of this as saying Microsoft Teams documents. Pretend it says that. That's really what it's for. So you would create a resources or documents 2 or something like that.
Okay, I see. Thank you.
Okay, no worries. Other questions?
Is there a part 2 of this training? Or I guess I'll watch all those videos, but I know like some people in facilities want to use Teams a lot more, so it's good to learn more and more.
Yeah, take a look at the videos and then book some time with me to let's talk about what your needs are. Because I mean it's a lot harder going, I just learned this stuff in 5 minutes and here's and I'm going to go and do this. I mean, that's what I did. And that's how come now I have conferences, presenters, and topics showing up for every single file. So,
Right.
learn from my mistakes, from my experience. But yeah, and sometimes it's just easier to sit down with someone who's got a little more experience and go, okay, because I mean, I know there are other people out there that have used it and stuff like that. And I'm not to say I'm the most experienced, but I think I've probably been using this the most over the last year.
Mm-hmm.
But there's other ways of taking advantage of it, and it comes down to what do you want to do. I mean, I know one area that all they did was had Teams, and they had the stuff at the top there and the little tabs. They built it all out like 8 tabs deep and stuff like that. Not everyone thinks this way.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's really, really hard for these people. Whereas if we had one link that says, hey, click on this, and here's a page that's got a bunch of handy links. Like, look, there's how you can search the McCune. Here's a great example for our technology support group. We've got one, and this is a quick reference for them. Here are quick links, bang, 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 right? Here's some more Google Sheets for documents, bang, 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 bang. So you can create those pages. This, again, is just a page on our site, but it's only being used by tech support. It just shows up there. I mean, there's nothing private in there. I mean, whoa, look at how you can learn about mailbox, shared mailbox and stuff. But I mean, it allows people to have a one-stop shop if you want. But if they need to, you go to the full site and you can do a lot more with it.
Mm-hmm.
And again, it just depends on what your audience is a big thing, what your use cases are going to be for. There's all sorts of stuff. The other thing that I'm really pushing is looking at using lists, because lists is so cool. Let me go back to my list here. So here's all these lists here. Boy, it's been a while since I've used this, but I can go in and I can create filters to say who's assigned me to what. I also can go in and I can create a notes. So here's this item here. A lot of times, if you were in a spreadsheet, you would create a column called notes, and then you would add something, someone would delete something, then someone would add something else. However, what's really cool is this item here has a comment field. So I'm going to go into this comment field. Actually, I'm going to use one that's existing already. So I can see these ones already exist. So I'm going to click on this. So someone made a comment last month. I'm going to go, yes, that's true. Talk to, see if they got it updated yet. There we go. Yep. Talk to Nick Fisher. And then I can send that off. Nick's going to get a little notice. And then this is now part of the history of that record. So it's not a note, that field that you can delete. It's part of the history. And you can keep going. And this could be like, miles long, but it captures everything. And you can't go in and delete it unless you're the owner. Mm-hmm. So it's not like people can just go in there and do that. I can do things like, hang on, it's been a while since I've been here, so I have to get my brain working again. What am I can request a sign off. I can set a reminder. So this is great. There's a date here. So this is the dates that these are supposed to be returned. I can set up a reminder. So when this date hits a specific thing, like let's say I want when today's date matches this, right? So let's say this is November 14th. This is today's date. When today's date hits November 14th, send me a reminder about this. So for example, in this case, this would be like a checkout system that I kind of fudged in here. The return date is going to be that date. When it hits that date, I get a reminder that says, hey, this item here, Macintosh, whatever the number is, signed out to Dave Cato, you need to go look at it. Because that's where I'm going to change the status here to something else, like the status would be overdue. I can also set it up so that when it hits that date, Dave Cato gets an email, whoever it's assigned to. Hey, have you addressed this yet? This needs to be returned. Not a great message, but it basically says, hey, this has been marked as overdue. You need to come talk to us. So there's lots of other power that the list does inside of here. And a lot of that stuff, whether it's a list like a simple spreadsheet with a lot of power, or whether it's the documents, a lot of cool stuff can be done with it.
Yeah, it looks like it.
Okay.
It'll just be hard to convince everybody to switch.
Well, and you know what? The one thing to do is when we talk is let's pick a project. because you can't overwhelm everyone and say, we're going to do all the stuff, we're moving everything over here, blah, blah, blah. That's our ultimate goal. Let's pick one project that's a real pain in the ass. That's a lot of work and an effort and stuff like that, and work on that. Because once that project's done and everyone goes, oh, I just have to click, oh, okay, well, that's easy. Then they become more open to other things. You have to kind of lead them by the nose to show them the advantages of it. And we run into this all the time because a lot of it's comfort level. Oh, I don't understand this stuff. This is too complicated. Okay, let's do it nice and simple. We'll take a couple steps and we'll stop. And then once you've done that, we'll add another step to the process and then we'll stop. So you might need to do that. But we can talk about, what's a good project. Like I said, for me, it's find something that just is a pain point. Whether it takes up too much time or if people just really hate doing it because it's so convoluted or something. If we can find a solution to do that, then you've won part of the battle.
Right.
Other question? Yes.
Sure.
So you talk about, so we have a list, this menu, and we can send the reminder to somebody. So if I needed to send the reminder to, 2 people, to remind them do something on a certain day, then I need to create the list under the group as a whole group and pick this 2 person to remind them, or I can just set a small group for that 2 people to send the.
So there's a couple of ways of doing that, and I'd have to see exactly what you're working on, but I believe I can assign more than 1 person to this. It's part of the initial setup. Normally, because it's a laptop, you only sign out to 1 person. But if I remember correctly, you can assign more than 1 person. So the automation would just basically say, whoever's names are in this field, go ahead and send the reminder. Now, the reminder is not customized. Like it's not a pretty, you go in and create a template and stuff. Power Automate, which is the other tool, can do that kind of stuff, but it's a more advanced tool. Right now, I'm focusing on just using what's there now because it's built in. You don't have to customize it, and it's easier to get to understand as first steps for you. But we should be able to do it. Book some time with me. We can take a look and see that.
Okay, sure. Thanks.
Cool. I'm going to just stop the recording now because anything else from here, if there are any more questions, would just probably be individual.